The boardroom fell into a silence so heavy that even the quiet hum of the air conditioner sounded like thunder. Every manager froze as the powerful CEO slammed a thick operations manual onto the polished conference table and barked at the exhausted single father standing near the projector. Her voice echoed through the glass walls with sharp humiliation as she ordered him to stop wasting everyone's time and read the manual if he wanted to keep his job. Then came the insult that made every employee lower their eyes in embarrassment. She called him a moron in front of executives, investors, and department heads. With trembling hands, the single dad slowly opened the manual to its cover page, expecting another lecture. Instead, the room changed forever. Printed beneath the company logo, in bold black letters, was a dedication that carried his own name. Every face turned pale as the truth quietly began to unfold. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, respect, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Share this story with someone who needs hope today and subscribe to the channel Kindness. Your support helps these inspiring stories reach people who need them the most. Michael Carter had never imagined that life would lead him to such a heartbreaking moment. At 38 years old, he carried more responsibility than most people could imagine. 4 years earlier, his beloved wife Emma had lost her battle with a sudden illness, leaving him to raise their 8-year-old daughter Lily alone. Every morning before sunrise, Michael prepared breakfast, braided Lily's hair despite never learning properly, packed her school lunch with handwritten notes, and rushed across the city to arrive at Langford Technologies before anyone noticed. He was often running on only a few hours of sleep. His clothes were always clean but old, his shoes polished but worn, and the deep circles beneath his eyes revealed years of quiet sacrifice. He never complained because his daughter depended on him, and every paycheck meant another month of keeping their tiny apartment filled with warmth and hope. Langford Technologies had grown into one of the country's fastest rising engineering companies under the leadership of CEO Victoria Langford. Brilliant, ambitious, and demanding, Victoria believed results mattered more than emotions. She expected perfection from everyone around her and had little patience for mistakes. Employees respected her intelligence, but feared her temper. Her reputation for public criticism had become legendary throughout the company, and even senior executives carefully measured every word they spoke in her presence. Michael worked in the Maintenance and Technical Operations Division, a department that rarely received recognition despite keeping every production line running smoothly. Whenever machines failed during late-night shifts, Michael quietly solved the problems before dawn. Whenever software systems malfunctioned, he patiently stayed overtime without asking for extra praise. Many younger employees admired his willingness to teach them, even when he barely had enough time for himself. What no one outside his department truly understood was that Michael possessed an extraordinary understanding of the company's operational systems. Because years earlier, he had helped organize many of the procedures everyone now followed. The important board meeting had been arranged to introduce a newly revised company operations manual that every department would use going forward. Investors from overseas attended through video conference, while dozens of department leaders gathered around the massive conference table. During the presentation, a technical problem appeared when one section of the manual conflicted with an equipment process. Michael respectfully tried to point out the inconsistency, believing it could create costly mistakes later. Before he could explain completely, Victoria assumed he was questioning months of executive planning. Without taking time to understand his concern, she publicly dismissed him, accusing him of trying to appear smarter than management. The humiliation reached its peak when she threw the heavy manual toward him and demanded that he read it before speaking again. Her frustration echoed throughout the room as every employee watched the exhausted father bend down to pick up the manual from the polished floor. His hands shook not because of fear, but because he knew Lily would be waiting after school, believing her father could solve any problem in the world. He wondered how he would explain losing his job if things became worse. As Michael carefully opened the manual, his eyes immediately stopped on the dedication page. For a moment, he simply stared, unsure whether he was reading correctly. Then, one of the senior engineers quietly stood up. The dedication honored Michael Carter for developing the original operational framework years earlier, when the company had been struggling with constant equipment failures. The manual explained that many of the company's most efficient maintenance systems had been built upon procedures Michael designed during an emergency restructuring project long before Victoria became CEO. Those procedures had quietly saved millions in production losses over the years. Confusion swept across the boardroom. Several older executives exchanged nervous glances because they remembered those difficult years. One elderly board member slowly explained that the company founder had personally insisted Michael's contribution always be acknowledged in every official edition of the operations manual. The founder believed true leadership meant remembering the people whose quiet dedication built success behind the scenes. After the founder retired because of declining health, many newer executives, including Victoria, had never learned the full history. Victoria looked at the cover page herself. The confidence that usually filled her expression slowly disappeared. She realized she had just insulted the very employee whose work had become the foundation of the company's daily operations. Every carefully documented maintenance procedure, emergency response checklist, and equipment safety process traced back to Michael's original system. The room remained painfully silent as the weight of her mistake settled upon everyone present. Michael never smiled with satisfaction. Instead, he gently closed the manual and stood quietly, avoiding eye contact with those around him. Years of hardship had taught him that proving someone wrong never healed wounded hearts. He simply explained that he had only wanted to point out a small printing error that could confuse technicians during emergency repairs. The mistake itself was minor, but correcting it would protect workers from unnecessary delays. Even after being embarrassed in front of the entire company, his first concern remained the safety and success of everyone else. That moment changed something inside many people watching. Younger employees realized that true strength did not always arrive with loud voices or expensive titles. Sometimes it appeared through quiet dignity, patient endurance, and the courage to remain respectful even after experiencing deep humiliation. Several executives who had rarely spoken to Michael suddenly remembered countless occasions when he had stayed late to help them solve unexpected problems. Without expecting recognition, Victoria spent the rest of the meeting listening instead of speaking. For the first time in years, she carefully asked questions rather than making assumptions. She requested a complete review of every department's operational procedures and invited Michael to lead the technical discussion. Instead of standing nervously near the back wall, he calmly walked to the presentation screen and explained complex systems with remarkable clarity. Investors who had expected confusion witnessed professionalism, humility, and extraordinary expertise. By the meeting's conclusion, confidence in the company's future had grown stronger rather than weaker. Over the following weeks, the atmosphere inside Langford Technologies slowly transformed. Public criticism became private coaching. Department meetings encouraged collaboration instead of fear. Employees who once stayed silent began sharing ideas that improved efficiency throughout the company. Michael accepted a leadership role, but insisted every improvement should recognize the entire maintenance team rather than himself alone. He believed success always belonged to people who worked together with honesty and respect. Life at home changed as well. Lily noticed that her father smiled more often during dinner. He no longer carried the same heavy sadness behind his eyes after returning from work. One evening, he proudly helped her finish a school project about kindness, explaining that people are remembered not because they hold power, but because they choose compassion when they have the opportunity. Lily quietly hugged her father, believing he was the bravest person she had ever known. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to Kindness for more emotional stories that remind us why respect and compassion matter. Special request: before the ending, please leave a comment with the words "Kindness always wins," if you believe respect is stronger than pride. Months later, the updated operations manual was released once again. This time, the dedication remained exactly where it belonged, reminding every new employee that great companies are not built only by famous leaders, but also by ordinary people who quietly give their best every single day. Michael never became famous outside the company, yet his example reached hundreds of lives within it. The CEO discovered that authority could command attention, but only humility could earn lasting respect. And every evening, as Michael walked home holding Lily's hand beneath the peaceful evening sky, he knew the greatest title he would ever carry was not engineer, mentor, or leader. It was simply being a loving father who refused to let hardship steal his kindness. In the end, everyone remembered the manual, not because it contained rules, but because it reminded them that behind every successful organization stands an unseen person whose quiet goodness deserves to be honored forever.